Hi, my name is Kate Summerlin, and I'm from the North Madison Congregational Church, Tuesdays in the Garden. And about 6 weeks ago, I walked with you all through my garden here in Guilford, Connecticut, and talked about spring blooming gardens. And I thought I'd take you through another visit to show you what has popped in the ensuing 6 weeks. Right over here is the glorious Exberry azalea. I'm thinking this is my Pentecostal garden, just a week off of Pentecostal Sunday with all the blazing orange. This is a shrub that is deciduous, which means it loses its leaves, and it has these bright orange flowers that are such a showstopper in the early days of June. Coming right over here is a Japanese maple. David and I bought this for each other on our 5th wedding anniversary. You can see 31 years later, we just celebrated our 36th wedding anniversary. It has been prolific in sending out new branches and new leaves. Right next door here is a beautiful honeysuckle. And this honeysuckle here you see is on the verge of blooming. And the great thing about this one is that not only is it gorgeous when it opens up, but it perfumes the air with a sweet honeysuckle smell. Coming around the other side of this beautiful Japanese maple, you can see this sweet little plant here called Centaurea montana. It's like a blue pincushion. And right next door to it is crane's bill geranium with its pink blossoms. This has a tendency to travel, so I have to cut it back after it blooms. And then right here are heuchera. This is the one and only plant I have from David's mother's garden. It's something I treasure and look forward to. It's subtle but beautiful when it puts up its little pink stems filled with flowers. Moving over here, we have baptisia, or false indigo. Nice big plumes of blue flowers. They're great for bouquets. They do self-seed. They're mingled right over here with the poppies, furthering the theme of the Pentecostal garden. Poppies are great flowers at this time of the year. Going right past here, this is a clematis. I wish I could remember the name of it. But this is one of those plants that gets bigger and better every single year. There's all kinds of varieties of clematis. They start blooming late May all the way through July. And if you look here, this is hinoki grass. I love this grass because it's such a great pop of color, kind of a yellow chartreuse, sets off all the flowers around it. And one of the things I've noted about my gardens is I like to be able to look at them from all different angles, and this grass just is so brilliant when I look out of the bedroom window and I can look down on it. So under here are hostas, always a favorite. They do so well in the shade. This is under a Norfolk spruce, or a Norwegian spruce, that provides sort of a little gentle area under here that allows the hostas their shade so they can thrive. So we come over here, you can see a lot more hostas. You can see the Japanese iris and the peonies about to bloom over here too. I have a ton of peonies. I love their fragrance and their flowers. You see in the back there a very large hosta. The hostas seem to be on steroids this year. I'm not sure whether it was the mild winter or what exactly. This here is ligulera. I showed you this on the former video. This is just a really cool flower with great foliage. It turns bronze depending upon how much sun it has. And in the fall, it puts up a big yellow flower. It's surrounded here by some light yellow green hostas, which set off the color of the ligulera behind it. As we move over here, you can see there's some more big hostas here. knockout roses that are about to bloom. And again, that big pop of color from the poppies. We learned a couple weeks ago about irises. I don't have too many of them. Martha had a whole ton. But here are the few irises that I have. Beautiful, beautiful purple and white. Martha may be able to tell me what they are. And behind them, the cranesbill geranium as well. And if we look over here, this is a new peony, one of the first ones to bloom. Can't wait to see it when it's completely open. A couple other things of note in this garden here. This is a yellow hosta right here. It has a little bit of damage from slugs, which have been pretty prolific. And this over here is lady's mantle. Lady's mantle has been doing great. This is a little liriope here, little striped flower. Striped plant will put up a blue flower in the late summer. And some more lady's mantle over here, which puts out a chartreuse flower, another one that's great for bouquets. Poppies are pretty short-lived, but for the moments that they're around, they sure are pretty spectacular. Over here you can see some more hostas. Again, big blue hostas, big blue leaves. Not sure what's exactly up with these, why they're so big, but I'm not complaining. So we moved into the patio here. I do put my orchids outside. I leave them out all summer long in a really shady spot. I've noticed that in years past, when I do have the orchids out, that they put up flower spikes almost across the board. So I have flowers in through the early fall months. Coming over here, this is a Japanese painted fern garden with a Stewardia tree right in the middle of it. And it flowers in early July. It's covered with white flowers. And this year I decided with the painted ferns that I were going to put some little pops of color in here of tuberous begonias. So you can see here's one, here's another one, here's a peach one, a red one. Over here is a yellow one, and in the back is another coral color one. They'll grow up in the course of the summer and just add these sort of pastel-y colors to an otherwise monochromatic bed. I want to show you one thing over here. This is my rake graveyard. Living in an old farmhouse, you find lots of utensils in the ground as you start to dig. And every one of these, I think I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rakes and a couple shovels that I've uncovered over the 35 years we've been here, and I've put them up in this little garden display. And this right here is a garden plant picture. It's a copper frame and it has succulents growing out of it. I got it for the first time last year, and I found out that all of these succulents actually overwintered and continued growing when I brought it out again this year. There's the Stewardia again. It's been kind of a tough year for trees all over Connecticut. We've had a couple of hurricanes. We've had some drought. It's a great big tree here. This is a Norwegian spruce. You can see probably goes up about 60 feet. It has pine cones. It's an evergreen, and it's wonderful as a road blocker and as an interest for birds. As we walk through here, I wanted to show you my little success story. This is my Franklinia tree, which I planted in memory of my father, who died a couple years ago. And it was about 6 feet tall, and the deer rubbed their antlers on it. You can just see a little bit of the former trunk of the tree. They stripped it of bark for about a foot, girdling the tree. But right below where they girdled it, all new growth is coming out. And it looks like the tree might end up being a bush rather than a tree, but it's still pretty cool and it's very encouraging. This right here is a curly willow. I bought this at a tag sale. It was probably about knee high. I loved it because it's got really curly bark, and I thought it would be great in flower arrangements. I didn't realize how incredibly big it would get. It is a water-seeking plant like most willows, but again, it provides some shade. It's kind of an interesting tree, and it ended up being pretty cool to have the branches put in bouquets or decorations. Now over here, I'm going to show you this really cool tree. Walk over here so you can get a better look of it. This is a dawn redwood. It's a deciduous tree, which means it loses its leaves. And most of the summer, once it leaves out, which are like little needles, it is a chartreuse green. And then right before it's about to lose the needles, it turns a beautiful salmon color. This tree, you can see it next to the Norwegian spruce, is probably about 2 stories tall, maybe even 3 stories right now. I put this in the back of my Mini Cooper when I first got it about 10 years ago, so you can see it really likes where it is right here. Here we go back to the curly willow. These trees here above me, which are not looking too good, this is a hemlock, and these are hemlocks over here. Unfortunately, in Connecticut, hemlocks have suffered tremendously from a little critter called woolly adelgid, which comes in and it's a little white bug that sucks the sap out of the trees. And it comes and goes. You usually have to spray the trees with a dormant oil, which does save them, but many forests of hemlocks have been decimated by the woolly adelgid. So we walk over this way. This is a red maple. Again, got this many years ago as a little tiny tree, and it suffered the loss of a couple limbs, but trees are pretty forgiving. They do come back. And though this one was sort of misshapen for a while, it's managed to put out some branches where it lost limbs before and has gotten to be pretty healthy with a really cool rounded shape. This tree over here is a maple tree. Lost a couple of branches in the last storm, and it's just starting to fill out. It had another tree right next to it. You might see that stump down there with the flagpole on it that stunted its growth. So now that it's got prime location, it should probably try to fill out a little bit. Coming over this way, this big tall tree right here is an elm, and over to the left is another elm. They're pretty rare in Connecticut because they were decimated by the Dutch elm disease. These two managed to survive. You can see they have a pretty high crown up there, and we feel lucky to have them here on our property. Over here is a dogwood tree. When the tree behind it came down, it took off part of the branches of the dogwood. You can see it's kind of a funky shape right now. And this dogwood got anthracnose this spring, which affected the leaves, but it's recovered pretty well, and I'm sure the branch that it's missing is going to grow back in a couple of years and provide us with lots of really cool pink blossoms. So as we come up this way, again we see that big elm tree. I want to show you this tree right here. This is a yellow magnolia, and it had a big tree growing behind it, so it was seeking the sun. And as the tree behind it was cut down, it's now growing up. It's somewhat righting itself and putting out branches here in the back where it was sheltered and in a lot of shade. But in the spring, This has beautiful, beautiful yellow, big blossoms on it. As we walk around this way, you can see the blueberry patch, and behind it is a Katsura tree. I think I mentioned this in a prior video, but this tree I bought on the streets in Vermont in Saxton's River. It's pretty small. Now this is a good 40 feet high, and it turns burgundy in the fall. Can't wait for that. It's really a stunning tree. And as we walk around here, you'll see a couple of other really big sugar maples. They are a couple 100 years old. Right back here, there's another one over there. And they're big enough that we can tap them and make our own maple syrup. So that's a pretty good tour of the trees that we've got here at Long Hill Road. The only downside to the trees is they all drop their leaves, and we have tons and tons and tons of work when it comes October and November. But the shade that they provide and just their beautiful elegance in the backyard make it all worthwhile. Hope you have a beautiful fall. Enjoy all the bounty that comes with fall, both from the vegetable garden and your perennial gardens. And take care.